Connectra creates opportunities for people living with disabilities by providing information, resources, and programming geared towards greater inclusion and quality of life. Check out some of the programs we offer through our online learning platform, Connect Together, including our Service Mondays, where we highlight a local organization or initiative, Wednesday Chair Yoga with Bobby Seal-Kobiski, Thursday Adapted Fitness with Megan Williamson, Friday Rotating Dance Classes hosted by Janice Lawrence and Joanne Cuff, and other initiatives including presentations by the Disabled Independent Gardeners Association's Growable program and our Perspective series. Check out our updated programs calendar on our website, connectra.org, or find us on Facebook at Connectra Society.
Okay, you can start.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Connectra, for having me. I remember last January I was on a panel about invisible disabilities. So to be here another year later with a lot of different service offerings on my end is really exciting. Hello, everyone who is here live and watching the replay. I'm really excited to be talking a bit about my own journey becoming a chronic illness advocate and sharing really how you might benefit from working with a chronic illness advocate. So if you don't know me, my name is Emily Fraser. I use she, her pronouns, and I myself live in Calgary, which is home to Métis Nation and the traditional territories of the Niitsitapi or Blackfoot and the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. So I always like to start with a land acknowledgement, not only in the spirit of reconciliation, but also because reconnecting with nature has been a huge part of my own physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual healing through my own journey navigating with multiple chronic illnesses. So today we're going to talk about my background, how I started this kind of work. I'll be talking about the different ways you can work with me in one of my programs. And then if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. So I have polycystic kidney disease. I was diagnosed as a teenager. It runs in my family. And I sustained a traumatic brain injury in October of 2019, which really started me down this whole path of really dealing with debilitating fatigue and needing to figure out how to make everything work for me. And then I also was recently diagnosed with a hypermobility disorder, which explained a lot of the complex, unpredictable symptoms that I experienced throughout my life that really I didn't know what it was stemming from. So I empower the disabled and chronically ill community with the tools and strategies they need to thrive. I have done graduate studies in advancing healthy and resilient and socially just communities and schools. I was formerly a band and choir teacher, and I realized that there was a real gap between all of these very practical, scientific-backed strategies that all of these doctors knew, but it wasn't being taught in a really clear, easy to understand way to people who could really benefit from them. So I realized that there was a gap to fill, and that is why I started my business. And I am on Instagram as the Spoonie Mentor, and I'm the host of the top-rated Spoonie Podcast. And if you do not know what a Spoonie is, it's a nickname that like hundreds and thousands of people who deal with chronic fatigue, whether that's stemming from a mental illness or a physical disability or an invisible disability, then they refer to themselves as Spoonies. And it came from something that chronic illness blogger Christine Miserandino wrote in 2004. And she coined a term called the spoon theory. Essentially, she was at lunch with a friend who was trying to understand what it really meant for her as she navigated lupus. And there were a bunch of spoons in front of her. So she took the spoons and was like, okay, walk me through your day. And the friend was like, okay, I get up. And then the friend took a spoon away. It's like, okay, I have a shower. Took 2 spoons away. And essentially, before the friend had even gotten through what she does in half of a day, she had run out of spoons. So it became a really widely shared article. You can still find it at butyoudontlooksick.com, or if you just search the spoon theory, you'll find the original article. But people started to realize that this was a really fantastic way of pacing and figuring out that as Spoonies, whether you're chronically ill or disabled, we have a limited amount of resources or units of energy, which I call spoons, and we need to figure out how to allocate them effectively. So there's your little brief history 101 about where the term Spoonie came from. It's a really great hashtag to search. It really helped me as I was on disability leave as a teacher dealing with my post-concussion syndrome. It really helped me connect with the community and make me feel not alone, and ultimately realize that I was dealing with disabilities and that there was nothing to be ashamed of. So it really empowered me on my own journey with unpacking ableism and internalized ableism. So for a little bit of a background about where I was, this was even at the beginning of last year. I had multiple failed attempts to return to work as a teacher and a musician. I used to travel the world performing in symphonies and bringing my own bands on tour in Russia and Italy. I had started a new job. I'd realized I couldn't teach, so I started working at a university, and then realized, okay, I can't do that either. So my disability leave had ended for the second time by last January. And at that point, I was honestly pissed. I was like, ableism sucks. Why can't anyone give me a job that's flexible? I was really grieving my old life and my old capacity. I felt depressed and angry and anxious. And honestly, I was stuck in bed. I had such debilitating pain and fatigue, and I was really stressed about money. By that point, my payments had ended. I had been in this lawsuit. I was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on treatments trying to get healthier. And my husband had been unemployed. So honestly, I launched my business, but even at that point, I couldn't commit to even one Zoom call per week with my first cohort of a course I launched. So I was still going to 5 to 7 medical appointments per week just to cope, just to survive, not even to thrive. And I was at that point unable to drive myself anywhere because the different stimuli from driving and having the cognitive task of doing it all, it was just way too much for me to handle with all of my symptoms. So then I had this realization that I couldn't stay stuck in this boom bust cycle anymore. This cycle I talk about where you feel good, so you try to get as much done as possible because you don't know when you're going to crash next, but then you obviously push past your symptoms and you crash. And then before you're fully recovered, you go back to working and then you crash. It's like this up, down, continuous cycle that so many Spoonies are stuck in. And I really realized that I had been going through this boom bust cycle for years, and I needed to put myself first if I was ever going to improve. Because yes, my brain injury had made things very severe, but even in the future, I knew that as my kidneys continue to develop cysts, I'll need dialysis, I will need a kidney transplant. So I realized I really needed to commit to these pacing strategies and all of these other tools and resources that I was really learning through my graduate studies and all of my meetings with different health practitioners about evidence-based ways to thrive. So by following all the strategies that I now teach my clients, I no longer experience chronic pain or fatigue or panic attacks. I went from seeing 15 different health practitioners a year to now only going to one physio appointment every 2 months. I've been seeing my family doctor, my family physician every 2 weeks for years, and we don't have to do that anymore. I no longer take any pain medications or supplements. There's a recent reel I posted on Instagram where I was just shoving hundreds of pills that I no longer take into the garbage. And I used to have to use these prism lenses because of my binocular dysfunction. I used to wear blue light clip-ons everywhere because I couldn't tolerate screen time. I used to wear noise canceling earbuds or loop buds everywhere I went, just to manage my overstimulation. So now I don't actually need any of those, and I don't need to worry about canceling plans last minute. I know a lot of Spoonies, because of the unpredictable nature of symptoms, feel really guilty when they have to turn down invitations or when they have to suddenly last minute be like, you know what, I don't have enough spoons for this. So I no longer have to worry about that. I no longer fear moving my body. I went from needing support to walk 5 minutes to being able now to thrive on 2-hour hikes, and my energy continues to increase every single week. And I no longer feel limited by my diagnoses. It's not like I suddenly do not have any issues. The thing is that I've really mastered the art of planning and pacing with any activity without provoking symptoms. So it's not that I'm like, oh, I cured everything and it's a miracle and green juice saved my life, because I know that's some of the messaging we get online. It's really been about accepting and embracing and becoming proud of my disabilities and learning how to adapt my life to make it work. And for me, that means that I've really learned how to thrive, but my life looks very different now than it used to. So some questions when people ask like, well, should I be working with a chronic illness advocate? What I like to say is that there's some common things that people experience when it's a good time to work with a chronic illness advocate. And I have I think it's 8 examples. If you resonate with one or more of them, then it's always a great idea to look for support, because it's kind of like even people like professional golf players, they still have coaches, basketball players in sports, right? Even professional musicians, they might be traveling the world performing, they're still going to have a teacher, because no matter what stage you're at, having that accountability can really help you. And also just the support system. I'm huge about building community. So it's time to work with a chronic illness advocate if you feel like your life is on hold because of your chronic health condition and you worry that things will never get better. And that's really common. Even if it's a degenerative condition, there are ways to thrive. Maybe you feel like nobody understands how debilitating your pain and fatigue or other invisible symptoms truly are. I know it's quite common to feel misunderstood. And we might look fine on the outside, even if we're masking all of these other symptoms, which I personally do not advocate for masking at all. I think that the more that we communicate about what we're struggling with, the more other people can really see and support us. Maybe you're having intense mood swings. I know this was really common for me. I kept snapping around loved ones or just completely shutting down. This is really common for anyone who's navigating a health condition or disability, because our nervous systems are in a chronic state of dysregulation. And when that happens, we're outside of our window of tolerance, and little things that normally we would have the emotional capacity and resilience to handle become extremely hard to navigate, because any little trigger, our subconscious will perceive that as a threat. So, back in the day, our ancestors had to worry about tigers chasing them, perhaps. And that sense of adrenaline was great to run away. But nowadays, when we're stuck in that hyper aroused state, immobilized state, it means that your body can't perceive the difference between a threat and just a discomfort, or like a modern day stressor, like too many texts to respond to, or too much paperwork to deal with disability and medication, which I know can be a huge stressor. Maybe you used to be a high functioning person and now you're feeling completely useless. And there's a really common sensation that you feel lazy or guilty for resting. We are living in a toxic capitalist world, an ableist world. And so we're constantly feeling like we have to compare ourselves to people who are hyper productive, high performing. And quite honestly, if we're not feeling like we're contributing to society, it can be really difficult on our self-esteem. You may struggle to ask for help because it makes you feel like a burden. I know that I was someone who always did everything and went above and beyond for other people. And it was a long journey for me to realize that it was okay to ask for help. It didn't mean I was placing a burden on someone else. Other people loved to help me. They just didn't know how unless I was explicit. So that is a skill that we need to learn, that we should be taught in school, but unfortunately we're not. And then often people don't have a clear pacing strategy. And if you're experiencing flare-ups, and if you feel like you cannot commit to plans because of the unpredictable nature of your condition, this means you don't have a clear enough pacing strategy. And often this means you get stuck in bed because you've pushed past your limits. When we've been in such a dysregulated state for so long, we often feeling anxious becomes like our safety net. It feels normal to us without us realizing oh, I am consistently outside of my window of tolerance, and I really need to embrace rest and learn how to plan my days in order to optimize energy. Otherwise, you're going to do a few things in the morning, completely burn out, and then be forced to do nothing for the rest of the day. Another common reason people work with me is because they feel really disconnected from their purpose. A lot of people want to be able to work full-time or get back to working full-time, but they don't know how to make that work with their diagnosis. And I can say firsthand that for me, making a lifestyle switch to become an entrepreneur was life-changing. We're so exposed to this media that tells us hustle culture, you have to work hard in order to make money or be successful. But I can promise that I do not work more than 3 hours a day, and I take breaks whenever I need to. And I work usually in 30-minute chunks unless I'm doing a Zoom call. And I am making more money than I made in my careers before. So it is possible to thrive. And it doesn't mean that you have to work hard or you have to be at a certain capacity. By becoming an entrepreneur, I actually became healthier every single month because I was able to have that flexibility for myself. So maybe that just opens your eyes. I always like to expand fellow Spoonies because I really didn't have that inspiration. I always had this mindset that like, oh, if I was, let's say, to become a coach, I would have to see clients like every hour at my home. Like I didn't even think about the online model. Like there's just so much that we can do nowadays. And there's really very little startup costs associated with online businesses. And then finally, you might feel isolated and alone. Of course, if you're already connected to Connectra's resources, which is amazing, you probably already feel this connection to other people navigating these challenges. But I know that people really crave a sense of community with people that are not just, they don't want to feel like they're in a support group on Facebook where everyone is complaining all the time. The people who join my programs tend to really want to not toxic positivity. We always talk about processing our emotions and the validity of everyone's feelings, but we also always have a goal of moving forward because there's a time and place for complaining and being stuck in the misery. But if you stay there, then it doesn't leave a lot of space for personal growth and joy. So there are a lot of free ways to work with me. My Instagram account, I treat like a blog. If you're to scroll back, you can go back years, depending on how much time you have. Every single post is like a blog entry, whether it's a carousel post you swipe or there's an image and then in the caption, I wrote something. There's tons of free resources in there. And also I've reflected a lot of my own personal journey. So if you just even feeling like you're seen by someone else, knowing that you're not alone is huge. I have my podcast, which is also a great resource. Originally, it was called the Calm Podcast because I used to teach a course called Career and Life Management. It's mandatory in Alberta where I live. But in the fall of 2022, I switched the name to the Spoonie Podcast. So more recent episodes are primarily focused for people who are chronically ill and disabled or just curious of how to be a better support or caregiver to one. But earlier episodes are still great. You can always go back and listen. It was really me navigating my concussion and just different topics that interested me. And then my website, of course, has other resources like a blog post about what is a Spoonie and free workshops that you can access. In terms of the working with me in a paid capacity, this is where I really commit so much of my time and resources because I truly believe that when you invest in yourself, it's like this commitment that you are ready for change. I think otherwise it's kind of toe dipping. There's tons of great resources you can do, of course. But for me, I was watching all these free workshops. I was like down people's email list, listening to podcasts about how to start my business. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And finally, when I invested with a business coach, like everything changed. So I really believe in the energy exchange that happens when you pay for a program. Of course, I do care about making it accessible. So I always have interest-free payment plans for anyone who's interested in working with me, because I don't really think it's fair to penalize people or have them pay more if they do require a flexible payment plan. So the Thriving Spoonie Pathway is my signature program. We call it TSP because TSP is like the acronym for teaspoon and we're Spoonies. So we thought it was kind of clever. But essentially what it is, it's a 12-week group mentorship program. You come into the container with me and my different support team, and we all work together. We do weekly lessons, which includes energy clearing at the end, because I know sometimes learning all these new cognitive things can make people become dysregulated. So we ease our nervous systems before you continue with your day. I have virtual office hours. Those are personalized times for you. You come into the Zoom, you raise your hand, and then I'll do spotlight coaching one-on-one. And I find that typically when someone has a question, it really resonates with everyone who's in attendance. There's weekly integration exercises. So these are worksheets, mindfulness practices, journal prompts, sometimes meditations, to really apply the strategies and resources that I'm teaching during the lessons. You have peer support community, which is such an integral part of the program. It's honestly like a third of the program, in my opinion, is just being part of a community of people who are committed to their own growth. And of course, lifetime access to all of the call recordings, because I can teach you something, but everyone integrates it at different times and in different ways. We all learn in different ways. So a lot of people tend to come back and revisit things and glean new insights each time. This is the framework of my program. It's all research-backed. It's all evidence-based. What I did is I took years and years of research that I had done, and I am someone who, as soon as I realized I didn't need grade 12 biology to graduate, I dropped that class as quickly as I could. Like, science always confused me. I was more of an arts girl. I was more a humanities, social studies, history kind of girl. So I really do explain concepts in a clear way. And it took me years to do all of this research, read all of these clinical, confusing papers, and process them in a way that made sense. And what I've done is I put it together in a container. So the first month is the foundation. We talk about balancing your nervous system. I've already addressed that today. It's so, so important to stay within your window of tolerance, because a huge percentage of symptoms are actually caused by the anxiety and depression we face by navigating chronic illness. So I always like to start with balancing our nervous system, getting this nervous system hygiene practices implemented, because then we can really see what we're dealing with. And that's how we can navigate what other types of supports you might need to look for depending on your condition. The second month, we focus on a resilient mindset. So there's so many ways, using the science of neuroplasticity, using growth mindset, and these other reframing cognitive behavioral therapy tools, to go from a feeling of things are never going to get better and I'm stuck, to realizing that you can reframe every situation, have optimism, and realize that you can learn and grow from every situation. So that's emotional resilience as well. And then the third month is a piece that I do not see spoken about. No one's addressing this. And it's a huge reason why I decided to create my business and do what I do, is that oftentimes being sick is because of trauma that's stored in the body that we need to process. But it's also because we are so misaligned in our life with what brings us joy, what brings us purpose. Our sense of intuition, we all have a sense of intuition, this deep knowing and understanding about what is meant for us. And I find that as we grow up, we get conditioned away from the things that bring us joy. Like, a lot of us think we're not creative, but if you go to a preschool, what kid is not enjoying arts and crafts? Everyone is creative. And I really use that third month to help us begin to reconnect with who we truly are, this radical authenticity, and embracing the things that bring us joy. And all of it is done within this beautiful container of the 12 weeks of having support, both from peer mentors in the program and from me, the knowledge, having it delivered in a clear way. I have over 10,000 hours, probably more now, I haven't done that calculation in a while, of teaching content in a variety of capacities. And then this sense of community, because the reality is that we heal in community. It's actually not possible to heal in isolation, which is exactly why I don't work one-on-one with clients, because that sense of connection is a huge priority. So right now I'm in the middle of a cohort. The only way to join is by joining the wait list. So if you are curious, you can learn more about the program just by going to emilyfraser.ca/TSP. And then you can scroll down, read more about the program, and join this waitlist here. If you join the waitlist, you are going to get access to different resources that I'll email you in the meantime, and also just a great price. You're going to get the lowest price if you join the waitlist, and priority access, because we do not have space for everyone who wants to join. Space is limited. And then the other ways you can work with me are through self-study programs. I know a lot of Spoonies, maybe they can't manage an hour of Zoom calls a week. So that's why I offer the self-study programs. The Mindful Moments collection is essentially every single tool that I ever used, whether it was emotional freedom techniques, Qigong, progressive muscle relaxation. I've curated a collection of meditations that I've ever either recorded or that I really love from YouTube, and put them in a really simple, easy to manage way. Resilience Reset course is my original course I created. It is honestly just like a Spoonie Foundation's, I would say, library of topics such as self-compassion, effective communication. A lot of Spoonies navigate challenges with loved ones or partners in terms of like not knowing how to communicate your needs and typically a lot of conflict. So how do you manage that in a smooth way? I talk about pacing in that program. So you can go and really look through the whole curriculum. And then also, this is a new collaboration I'm very excited about. Dr. Mallory Fox is a movement expert, and she is a Spoonie herself. So we've collaborated for a sustainable movement program where you're going to get videos and workbooks from her on how to go from like unable to move. Maybe you are confined right now because of your condition to whatever your goal is, whether that's walking, being able to go upstairs. It's a really incredible program. All of these are accessible year-round at my website, emilyfraser.ca. And you can, just so you know, if you do pay in full for TSP, you will get them as a bonus. So if you're like, I want both, then you can always, if you enroll in the programs now, that amount of money will be credited towards you. If you decide to join TSP, you can always DM me on Instagram or email me if you want clarification. But these do come as bonuses for the pay in full program. So that's kind of my spiel. These are, again, ways that you can reach out to me if you have any more questions. I am in the middle of developing a business program for aspiring Spoonie-preneurs. So if you're like, whoa, how is she only working 3 hours a day, taking vacation whenever she wants and still making money? And honestly, like, I still have trouble believing how amazing it is that I built this abundant business. But you can email me and we can chat about what it is you're looking for. As I'm developing this program, I want to make sure I'm meeting your needs. Or if you're watching this replay later on, maybe I've already launched the program by then. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. And I guess I'll add, on my podcast, every month I do a Q&A episode. So if you go to any one of my podcast episodes and scroll down, there's a link to submit a question. You can leave a voice message, and that's where I will provide an answer for you. And it'll be shared with the whole audience that listens to my podcast. So that's a way to also get free one-on-one support from me, as opposed to DMing me like very personal questions. This way, at least I know that I'm helping a wider audience as well. And I just wanted to remind all of you too that healing isn't linear. And I know healing, some people think that means just eliminating all symptoms. To me, I view healing as a very holistic thing. Even if you have a degenerative condition, I believe you can still heal, whether that's being less triggered by things that typically would cause you to have high emotions, or whether it's learning how to practice self-compassion. All of these things are aspects of healing, and we have to look at it in a holistic way. But these ups and downs are a huge part of the progress. There were moments over the last several years that I was like, how am I at the bottom again of my progress? And each time you learn, each time you grow. So really don't give up whatever stage you're at. I'd love to know if you have any questions here about my program or anything else at all. I'm more than happy to listen. For those of you who are here, you could either raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Or if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Even if it's just questions in general about pacing or about navigating your health condition or about my own journey, I'm more than happy to help. I'll also add that, chronic illness advocate, there's lots of different forms of advocates. Like, for example, disability advocates will really help people with filling out the paperwork, and then you can talk to lawyers as well. But for me, I really focus on the aspect of advocacy that is about empowering others. As a natural teacher, I just see a lot of people who don't have those skills and strategies to thrive. So my form of advocacy is education. And there's other chronic illness advocates who have different perspectives on advocacy. There's advocates who might come to your doctor's appointments with you, or sit in meetings if you're navigating talking with a boss about accommodations that you require. So there's a lot of different types of advocates and resources for people who are chronically ill. And it does require some digging, but organizations like Connectra are great places to start to see, like, what's available to me. This is what I'm struggling with. And if you have, you can always ask me, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And I can always see who I know in my own network. as a teacher, they always taught you to give wait time for people who might be like nervous to ask anything, or maybe I'll just give you time to type in the chat too if you have something you maybe want to ask. I know this talk was supposed to go an hour. I was hoping there'd be more questions because I don't know how to talk about myself for a full hour. Great question. What is the general age of participants? Honestly, like I've been amazed at the range. We have participants in TSP that have ranged from 18 to 75 is the oldest participant in this current cohort. And, I assume because I'm breaking people into different pods so they get like a more intimate container one-on-one to connect. And I do try to break it based on interest, but I'm always amazed that age doesn't even seem to be a factor in terms of connecting. Like with the September cohort, we're actually meeting in Florida next month. And again, like 18 to 65, we've got people and they're all so close. The types of connections really transcend age, I've noticed, because when we're spoonies, we all are that's already like a source of connection. We already know how hard it is to navigate that whole list I went through of like, you feel like a lack of purpose, you feel like a burden, you don't know how to ask for help. Wondering if someone in mid-60s not looking to resume work will find connection. Totally. We have people who are retired and trying to even when you're retired, either because of an illness or not, it's like suddenly your life really changes. Even my dad, who's not a spoonie at all, but when he retired, he was like, what do I do with my free time? Because we're so conditioned to like, what am I supposed to do? And there's even people who are in their 30s who know that they will not be resuming work. So definitely you'll find connection. I find that the people who tend to join always end up finding people that they connect with. And there are definitely people in the group who are in their 60s and over who are retired or who are not looking to return to work and are just learning to navigate that. And like, for example, I'm not a mother, but like other mothers who are there to connect with each other and offer support, grandmothers who are there to support with each other. And so definitely. And I'll say, if you are considering joining TSP, one of the best places to get started is to go to emilyfraser.ca/workshop. Or if when you join the waitlist, the first email you get from me will be a link to that replay. I did a workshop on pacing 101, and that's where I really start to share some of my strategies that I teach around time-based pacing, because that was a true game changer for me. And I also talk about how to, prioritize your ADLs, your activities for daily living, things that like, occupational therapists, speech therapists teach. Like I do tend to teach a lot of that same type of curriculum. And so far, it really is incredible to see the relationships that people build inside of TSP. And also just to know, like, some people thought they were joining TSP and they never were planning to get back to work. And then like we have people returning to work. We have someone who was, she had to sleep in a recliner chair at her parents' house 24/7 and for a full year. And by the end of the 12 weeks, she was able to climb the stairs and has been sleeping in her bed, making her own bed ever since. So lots of magical things happen when and this is the leap of faith that I see everyone go through, because when you tune into me, there's free resources on the Instagram. I've got my podcast, but that act of investing in ourselves is something that I find a lot of spoonies do not do. Because like I find I tend to attract a lot of perfectionists and overachievers who feel like they need to do so much for other people, and yet they are unwilling to receive anything in return. And so for me, when I first invested in a business coach, it was like a serious commitment. Like it was like multiple thousands of dollars. And I was like, am I ready? But when I joined, I was like, yeah, I'm ready and I'm going to be successful because I'm betting on myself. So Yeah, it's really cool. And a question, how many people in TSP and where all from? So the current cohort has 25 people. My first cohort last September had 10 people. In future launches, I'm looking at how can I adapt the programming in order to make us have as big of a reach as possible, because one of my values with my business is impact. So it will depend on each round what we cap numbers at. But we'll always be preserving the sense of connection. And honestly, most people are from North America, because our time zone, we were meeting around 2 p.m. MST, Mountain Standard Time. But then so many people from like Europe joined that I was like, okay, we're going to add office hours earlier and stuff. So a lot of people, they catch the replays. Everything is recorded if you can't attend live. We have people from Belgium. In my other programs like Resilience Reset, I've had people from South Africa, the Netherlands, all over the UK, Europe. Yeah, honestly, like from everywhere, which just goes to show how these types of sentiments and this feeling of isolation and the Spoonie journey is universal, really. So far, I've only attracted people who identify as women. And I don't know if that's, but I also think that's because I think the stat is 80% of people with chronic illness are women. And that's why I know my programming works, because I embed aspects of social justice. Like we look at, why is it that women tend to feel these pressures to do everything, be the best mother, still work and still take care of all these tasks traditionally at the house? So all these subconscious messages that we receive from a young age, from media and from all over, it seems like I've been attracting women, but it doesn't mean that people of other gender identities wouldn't be welcome in the cohort. There's my cat, Cody. I appreciate the questions coming through. And I also think I'll add that, my program, I'll continue to offer it. And I know that people who first hear about it, sometimes they take a few months to really decide they're ready to join, because it does require a change in your attitude towards your illness. We go through so much inside of the program. We start to look at our health blueprints and things that happened when we were younger and how it might be impacting our current day health. And so it's a gentle journey, because we do it in community and we have all these different practices to make sure we're staying in regulated spaces, informed from a trauma lens. But it also does require looking at things that maybe you've been avoiding. Like, for example, I've been trying to cut back on sugar and dairy for a while, because I know I'm lactose intolerant and I know that I eat too much sugar. I mean, we're all kind of addicted to sugar, but I tend to go to sugar as a way to soothe my emotions, which I know is not healthy. I've known in my mind that I need to change for a while, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to make that change. And similarly, a lot of people who are sick know that there's something about their lifestyle that they need to change, whether it's being a workaholic, whether it's that they're not taking enough breaks, whether it's that they're in like a relationship that's not serving them. So joining TSP or any of my programs is actually like, it's aligned action. It's this step you're taking towards really choosing yourself and deciding you're not going to allow yourself to fall back. And that can take some time to work up to. So I'm definitely not, if you ever wanted to DM me and ask about TSP, I'm never going to like use these tactics like join now and you only have 24 hours left to save $1,000. Like, I'm not going to use those kind of stress tactics, because I really want everyone to make a decision that's well-informed, and I want them to make a decision that is aligned with their intuition. So whether that means you've taken time to ride the roller coaster and really see how you feel, or maybe it's that you're really trusting your gut and you're ready to jump on right away. It's however your intuition works. And I really encourage people to make the decision that's best for them. There are other programs. There are programs specific to different illnesses. There's lots of, I don't call myself a health coach, but there are lots of health coaches out there. So if it's not me, then I do encourage everyone to work with a coach or work with someone that can really provide that accountability and support, because it really is integral to thriving. Any other questions from anyone here? I think it was Kauser who's with Connectra. Are we allowed to end early, or should I keep talking about something?
It all depends. If you want to end, we can end.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave it as people can reach out to me on Instagram at the Spoonie Mentor. That's the best way to reach me. But I definitely encourage visiting my website. You can sign up for the free workshop, join the waitlist if you're interested. And yeah, I'm really appreciative of everyone who came here today. Thank you, Connector, for having me. And I look forward to connecting with all of you.
Nice.